Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to PENSCO Presents Performing Due Diligence on Single-Family Rental Homes with Abhi Golhar. My name is Christopher Orr. I'm the Director of Institutional Products here at PENSCO Trust, and I'll be your host today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll get started. Just a little housekeeping items and reminders here that we have to go through before we can get started. For your phone, there is a dial-in number. It's up here at the top of the slide along with an access code. This will put you in a listen-only mode. You will be automatically muted. So if you do have questions, there is a question panel on your webinar login. You can go ahead and submit your questions that way, but we will not be able to hear you. We will have copies of the presentation for everybody afterwards. So that's always a question we get a lot. There will be copies for everyone, and we can email them to all the participants later on in the week. And again, if we don't get to your questions, as we might have a lot, we will answer all your questions with a follow-up email if there's any that we don't get to live today on the webinar. Thank you very much for that. Again, my name's Chris Orr, and I'll be hosting today. The information in today's session is presented is for educational purposes only and is not intended as and may not be relied upon as tax, legal, investment, or other advice. PENSCO performs the duties of custodian and as such does not evaluate, recommend, or endorse any particular investment opportunities. You're advised to consult your professional advisor for specific guidance regarding your investments. Investments are not FDIC insured and are subject to risks, including the loss of principal. Thanks for letting us get through that. A little background on PENSCO. PENSCO has been around for almost 30 years now. We've got about $13 billion in assets under custody. We're the industry's premier self-directed IRA custodian, 47,000 clients, over 42,000 unique asset types, everything from real estate, private equity, farmland. If you can imagine it, we can hold it as long as the IRS permits it. We know exactly what it takes to get these kind of things done. This is our bread and butter. We've been doing it for a long time, and so we want to make it possible for you if you do want to get into some of these non-market traded alts. Administrative services, just like most places you're going to get your statements, you're going to get annual evaluations. We are in line with the IRS. We can take care of UBIT. You can do all this stuff online. And of course, we've got professionals here at your beck and whim. So we'll get started here. Today's guest, Abhi Golhar. He's the host of Real Estate Deal Talk radio show. He's been featured in Personal Real Estate Investor Magazine, Think Realty, and other real estate media. He is not affiliated with PENSCO, although we're glad to have him, or he's not affiliated with Opus Bank, who's our parent company as well. He's not been paid for this participation, but he's happy to be here. With that, I'm going to hand it over, and we'll get ready to hear about some due diligence. Again, we'll take questions at the end. But with that being said, Abhi, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Abhi Golhar. I'm the host of the daily radio show, Real Estate Deal Talk in Atlanta. And it's been fun having a bunch of cool guests on the air with me as well. We talk a lot about real estate investing, and we really dive into the depths of what's been going on in this market. And if there's one thing for sure that I know is we have to absolutely understand that we are building something for the long term. And I've been in the flipping world for a while. I enjoy doing I enjoy doing residential single-family flips. I enjoy developing and selling off property. But one of the biggest key challenges for me as a flipper and as a developer, or even if you're listening and you're an agent, guess what? You have to constantly do deals over and over and over and over again, year after year after year. So how do we supplement our activity in the market? My biggest recommendation, what I've always been doing, is purchasing single-family rentals. Now, there comes a little bit of worry for a lot of folks when you think about single-family rentals, right? You have a massive challenge ahead of you. You have to deal with tenants. You have to deal with renovations. What if the toilet doesn't work at 2 o'clock in the morning? You're going to get that phone call. And how does all of this work? And so the presentation today, my objective with the presentation today is to outline exactly the types of deals that you should be looking for if you're looking for long-term single-family rentals, how you can evaluate these deals, and ultimately, how do you build a rental real estate portfolio that's going to rock your world? And I say that because at the end of the day, I feel, and again, I'm on the radio every single day, and I have a different podcast, and it's a lot of fun. But there's one message that is consistent with all of my guests, and that is consistency of cash flow. And that's why I absolutely love single-family rentals. So let's begin. Is there too much optimism in the market? Are too many real estate investors having a little bit of fun? I mean, what do you think about the market? Take a look at, maybe think about what you've heard in your local market, and kind of get a good gut check. What's going on right now? Are there a lot of flippers out there? Are there a lot of newbies in the market right now? Are there too many developments going on? I can tell you one thing for sure. Atlanta is on fire. So much so where I feel like the market might be set for a little bit of a correction. As the Fed increases interest rates, affordability will start to decrease a little bit. We won't see, I don't expect that we're going to see a market crash, but I do expect to see a little bit of a correction. But why is the optimism? Right? I'm notorious for not having a car in Atlanta. I know. It's crazy. I'm the one real estate investor that doesn't own a car. I haven't for 10 years, and I probably won't. One, because I cannot deal with drivers in Atlanta. But I must say that you remember hearing that when you start hearing taxi drivers talk about the stock market, it's time to get out. That's kind of what I like to test with my Uber drivers or my Lyft drivers. I want to know what they're thinking about the market. What are they kind of deviating toward? Are they also becoming agents? Are they also starting to flip real estate? And if that's the case, then maybe folks are a little too optimistic of where the real estate market is going. And I feel, and again, this is just my feeling, is there's a bit too much optimism in the market right now. And I can see it. I can go to East Atlanta. I can go to Edgewood. I can go to Old Fourth Ward. I can go to Kirkwood. These are small neighborhoods in Atlanta. And everybody is building. Everybody is just building, renovating. They're popping the roofs off, and they're going up a level, and they're selling for significantly more. So that's where my caution comes from. And that's where I would like to take this discussion is, what about rentals? And what do we need to start doing right now to position ourselves for the future? Because you know what? At the end of the day, who survived the last market crash? Right? If you really take a look at the real estate investors that did really well back in the day, those are the folks that ended up holding real estate. Sure, everybody had to modify the mortgage. Sure, you had to work with your lenders, but you know what? Everybody needs a place to live. And that's why single-family rentals are incredible. And that's why even doing the due diligence around it is incredible, because back then, values, if you take a look at the zip code here in Atlanta, 30310, the values dropped so significantly that the homes were pretty much worthless. But you know what happens? The value may have gone up and down, just very similarly in the stock market, right? The value of a stock will go up and down throughout the day. But if you hold on to that stock, if you hold on to that piece of real estate for the long term, it will do very well, especially if you have good renters, and especially if you're paying attention to what's going on around you. So I think it's a nice little thing to utilize. It's a great wealth generator, and with real estate, you get so many things. You get the income, you get the depreciation, you get the equity, and the appreciation, and the leverage. You don't get this in any other asset class, period. So what's the common thread here? Cash flow is king. Systems are clean. So if you have cash flow, you have good tenants, you'll have cash flow. If you have good systems, you have good people, you have good property management, you have good tech to make sure everything is going the way that it needs to go and everybody's communicating the way they need to talk to each other when that happens, then you know what? You have a pretty winning system. And at the end of it all, everyone has to look at the opportunity, the numbers, analysis of these numbers, and the relationships. That's what's going to make your real estate rental business thrive. There is an investor that I know in Atlanta. He started by just having 2 rental properties. He started with only 2 rental properties. And he grew that. He perfected exactly what was going into each one of his houses. He knows exactly what type of light fixture. He knows exactly what type of doorknob. He gets super surgical with this information. But you know what happens as a result of that? Once you standardize everything across the board, now he has a portfolio of about 125 homes that are cash flowing every single month. And he was able to get there with the right people, with the right process, and with the right product. So that is this common thread. It seems a little convoluted, but it's really, really important that you get this and you understand that it's an equation. Just like your body, everything's an equation. When you're working out, you have to work out your entire body. This very similarly here, you have to make sure that you pay attention to where you're getting your deal, how you're evaluating your deal, how you're structuring the capital behind your deals, because there is a difference between smart capital and done capital. Absolutely, every single time, right? You know that. There's so many hard money lenders out there that have no problem charging you 4 points and say 14%, but that's going to be a challenge because you can't cash flow at that. And you need your team. Who's going to be on your team? So we're talking about a lot of that in this presentation as well. Okay. So my thesis here is start the shift from flipping to rentals. Okay. The image of the property that you're seeing in front of you is a deal that we had in Atlanta. This is on Pennington. That's 1707 Pennington Place in East Atlanta. And it started off with just, we thought it would be just a super simple renovation deal. No big deal, right? You get inside and all of a sudden it's one of those nightmare situations. We have to gut the entire house. We have to go to the city and say, listen, it's not a regular renovation. I'm sorry. We need a completely new set of permits. And that project, though profitable, took significantly longer than it needed to. And we had so many problems along the way. We had water issues. There were water leaks, so we had to go and we had to call my contractor for this one, but we had to engineer the backyard so that the water would stay away from the home. And this is what the house looked like at the very initial stages of this renovation. We thought we would just be, quick in and out in 3 or 4 months, call it a day. But what if you're a flipper? And what if you have 2 or 3 or 4 of these projects now commanding your time? Your lender definitely will not accept any type of extension. Your lender needs to be paid every month. And if you have 3 or 4 headache projects, and if you're, say, doing 30 or 40 a year, which is a pretty sizable operation, it becomes a problem. It becomes a really big problem. So one of my mentors came into town, and we had a meeting of the mind. And he said, Abhi, what are you really doing? This was maybe about 1.5 years ago. He said, what are you really doing with your real estate investing business? What is it that you want to accomplish? What is your objective? I said, very straightforward, my objective is long-term wealth generation. He's like, then make sure that you have different buckets of activity that you're putting all of your energy into. You absolutely have to. So there are 3 buckets of activity that he mentioned. The first is your flipping business. The second is your rental business. And the third is other. And other can be any type of higher risk, if you want, real estate project. It could be a commercial project. It could be a multifamily project, something where you're comfortable taking a little bit more risk. But if you're not comfortable taking a little bit more risk, then no problem. You can adjust the buckets accordingly, bring the other bucket down to 0, and your flip bucket now goes to 50%, and your rental bucket now goes to 50%. Now, why did he mention this? And why now? He saw a year and a half ago that inventory was going to be low. He saw a year and a half ago that the folks that are running around in the real estate business, that are flippers, that are builders, that are developers, need to start generating cash flow. And hence the shift. The shift must happen. And he's a very interesting guy, and he and I connect on a very regular basis. And if you don't have a mentor of your own, make sure that you go get one, especially in your market. I mean, I'm more than happy to help. I'm certainly happy to help kind of offer some clarity and offer some insight. But if you're in, say, Jacksonville, Florida, or if you're in Miami, or if you're in New York or California, I know many of you are joining in, are from all around the country, make sure that you have a couple of go-to people in your marketplace that you can connect with about what's going on locally. Here's an interesting thought. Another one of my mentors out of Orlando, he suggested, get out of California. Don't even buy in California. California is about to implode. This was maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And I disagreed. I thought, wait a minute, why is that going to happen? I see the values pretty strong in California. The values are very strong in primary markets. Why is there a need for that? And he gave me some basis and some judgment based on that, which is outside the scope of this presentation. But learn the market. In fact, he was a little bit right and a little bit wrong. And that just tells me that, one, you need that local expertise, and two, if California is undergoing that shift and undergoing that change, and if it's too much to handle from a total project cost to ARV perspective, and we'll get into those numbers as well, then you know what? Maybe it is time to start getting some rentals. Isn't it? I mean, I think it is. So let's keep going here. One of the biggest things when looking at single-family rentals is making sure you know what you're buying. You have to understand what you are buying. What makes sense for you? Are you the type of person that is interested in doing renovation to a home and then you're okay with renting it out for a little while? Or are you the type of person that says, you know what, I'm not really interested in doing a whole lot of renovations. I only want a home that's kind of ready to go. And I want a home that I can rent, boom, today. So there are three categories here. The first category is your renovation to renter category. Your second category is, you know what, I want a little bit of rehab, but I already want a house that's in the configuration that it should be. And then your third category is your turnkey category, where everything's lined up, your tenant is lined up, you're probably purchasing this home from another third party that has local market experience, local market knowledge, and it's already tenanted and it's already cash flowing. So let's talk about those three. If you have a little bit of expertise in residential real estate renovations, then I suggest, and this is just something that totally makes sense for me, is I suggest getting a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. Here's why. If you purchase a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home, and let's say that home is 900 square feet. It's good enough for one family to probably stay there for about a year before they end up buying their own home somewhere else. If you find a distressed 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom property, and you're able to renovate that property to a 3-bed, 2-bathroom property, then guess what? Not only have you forced the appreciation, you've forced the appreciation, so you've forced the value of that property to increase substantially over the 3 months because you've renovated it from a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom to a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Now, this process requires time, it requires expertise, and it requires working with the city to make sure that you have all of your permits in line. So if you're new to the game, or if you're new to rentals, or if you're new to renovation, we'll talk about those options in just a second. But the option that I love, if you have a little bit of experience, is get that 2-bedroom, 1-bath, renovate that home, and rent it as a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home with all the nice renovations. You will command premium rent, and you'll have a renter in there that wants to take care of that property like it's his or her own. And that is really, really important. The second type of category is, you know what? I'm not interested in doing any type of renovation. Meh. I hate renovations, those guys. You know, I see those guys on TV anyway. They look like they're having a miserable time. Well, fantastic. Don't worry about the renovations then. Let's focus on buying a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. And I've notated a quick little sample buy box for you. So when you're connecting with real estate agents or wholesalers or brokers in your market, you can let them know that you're interested in a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It may need minimal upgrades to no upgrades. I'm looking for about 1,100 square feet. I want the home to be built after 1960. And I'm also looking for homes in emerging markets outside of only primary markets. So I'll get to that in just a second. This is a sample buy box that you can use. And it's a sample buy box that will provide direction to the real estate agent. Because now you appear just that much more knowledgeable. You know exactly what you're going after, and you have that buy box down to a science. The good thing about not having to do a lot of renovations in the house, especially for rentals, is, sure, you might have to change out the carpet. You might have to repaint. No big deal. You might even have to change out some of the cabinetry, or just paint over the cabinetry. No big deal. The beautiful part is it's pretty much in as-is, ready-to-go condition for a rental. You could put up an ad on Craigslist tomorrow, or work with your real estate agent and have them find a renter immediately. I love these kind of homes because you don't have to do any of the crazy major renovations that I would normally have to do to a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom. The type of person that will rent a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home is your family. They have a spouse. They have a kid or two. They might have a dog. These types of people love to rent 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom homes. And 1,100 square feet is a good starting minimum square feet. I wouldn't suggest that's your maximum square feet at all, but I would suggest that is your minimum square feet. I like homes built after 1960 because generally they have less problems. I was looking at institutional data and hedge funds that had renovated a few thousand homes between Charlotte and Atlanta, and they've found that homes that were built after 1960 had the least dollars per square foot that you had to spend in order to renovate. That's a very general statement, however. Every home has its issues, so make sure that you get an inspector into that home so you know exactly what's going on. A quick tip as well, before you buy any property, what I like to do is get a survey for each property. I want to know where the boundary lines are. I want to know where I might be encroaching on others' properties, and also vice versa. It gives me a very clear indication of if I have any challenges as well. An example of this, there was a deal that went sour, not for us, but for a lady next door on Hill Street that we purchased. We purchased Hill Street, 945 Hill Street. It's pretty much a lot that we purchased. And we found out only after getting a survey. This is the reason why surveys are really important. The only reason we found out after getting a survey that Atlanta had three of its oldest sewer lines running directly underneath the lot. So that's super dangerous, right? But we know how to work with the city. We know how to kind of work around that. We can build for the rear of the property or the front of the property. We can get variances, no big deal. The lady next door, however, she was also an investor, and she purchased that property without getting a survey. And guess what? The sewer lines run directly underneath her house. Unbelievable. And that presents so many problems. Luckily for her, the lot is long enough to where she can tear down the current home and she can build a nice new home in the rear of the property. But if that property were any smaller, she would have been completely out of luck. on that particular deal. So please, please, please make sure, just another investor's tip, make sure that you get a survey for every property. It's a couple $100, but believe me, it's worth it. So this buy box is good if you're not interested in a whole lot of renovation. You don't want to take a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home and bring it to and build a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. No big deal. You know what? This is perfect for you. The third type of category that I had mentioned previously was turnkey. Now, this might be a great opportunity for folks. I'm an investor, so I don't necessarily need a turnkey provider to sell me a house, because I can find them, I can renovate them, and I can tenant them, and I can manage them if I wanted to individually, or I can find property management. But for those of you that are not as inclined, or those of you that just don't have the time, a good turnkey provider will have two things. One, great analysis on the property, and two, fantastic in-house property management. There's a very big difference between outsourcing property management and having property management in-house. There's so many costs that you can control. You have a lot more reporting with in-house property management. So the three types of property, or the three types of opportunities here: one, your 2-bed, 1-bath house that you can renovate into a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, and that's kind of for your experienced operator. Two, if you're not as experienced, but you don't mind picking up a paintbrush and a sledgehammer every now and then you might be in the 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Leave it as a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Let's do a little bit of renovation and rent it out immediately. And if you don't feel like doing any of that at all, then guess what? No problem. There are turnkey providers available to you in your local market. Okay. Next up, my favorite topic: how do we find deals? Now, before I had mentioned inventory is low, so let's do another gut check. How are we feeling about finding deals currently in your local market? I can tell you for sure, Atlanta's becoming really, really tough. Really tough. I get a lot of email every single day with leads and deals in my inbox, and I probably throw away 90% of them. 90% of them. I'll probably look at between 10 and 12 deals a day just on the single-family front, and I'm tossing about 7 to 8, maybe 9 of those deals. They're just no good. So what do we do? How do we get the edge? How do we find deals in a hot market? Well, there are 8 different ways to find deals in a hot market. My absolute favorite, number 1, GoSection8.com. GoSection8.com is a list of single-family property owners that have property that are renting it out to folks that have Section 8 vouchers. Okay, Section 8 vouchers, in 4 words, is government-assisted housing. Very, very simple. So these investors have purchased homes, and they're renting it out to Section 8 voucher holders. Now, why go to Go Section 8? Well, guess what? Those are investors too, and they may be interested in selling their property just as much as they may be interested in buying property. So go to GoSection8.com and do a search, punch in your zip code, punch in your city and state, and call them up. And a quick script that you can use is very simple, very, very simple. And I would say, hi Sally, my name is Abhi Golhar. I'm a local investor here in St. Louis. And I'm calling because I got your information on GoSection8.com. And I'm also a local investor, and I'm interested in purchasing property. And this address came up, and I wanted to know if it was for sale. And you never know what the response is going to be. I've had a pretty good response on this just by cold calling some of these folks. Now, some may say, well, not right now. Some may say maybe later. But it's good to start developing this database. And guess what? They can also be buyers of property as well. And now you're starting to create an exit strategy. So if you need to sell a rental one day, hey Sally, remember me? It's Abhi. I called you a little while ago about that home that you had that I was interested in buying. Well, fortunately for you, I have a home that I'm selling in that area. So start to develop relationships with these people. GoSection8.com is a wonderful resource to find folks that already have homes. They're investors that are already renting property. Number 2, hard work in the summertime, driving for dollars. It's hot, it's 90 degrees, nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to walk door to door, knock on doors, walk through a neighborhood and get rejected and the door slammed shut in their face 100 times, right? That's not fun. But if you have the tenacity, you have the will, anything is possible. Driving for dollars is wonderful. Essentially, what driving for dollars is, you go through your local neighborhood. Okay? Jump on your bike, jump in your car, and just start driving. And you'll start to see properties that haven't been kept well at all. You'll see a blue tarp over a roof. You'll see overgrowth in the lawn. You'll see a battered front door. And you'll see generally a property in disrepair. The best thing to do, jot down the address and send a mailer to that person. Now, there are many things that you can, there are many mailers that you can use. You can use yellow letters, you can use postcards. Personally, I like postcards. They're cheaper, you can get them in more quantity, and it does the exact same job. There are other folks that like to use yellow letters. Essentially, the color of the paper is yellow, and you're writing on it, and you're writing to the homeowner saying that you're a buyer and you're interested in purchasing their house. But driving for dollars is great. Not only do you get to know your local market very well, but you also can meet other investors doing the same thing. Here's why I know this works. I was driving for dollars a couple weeks ago in Kirkwood, and there's this new little pocket that's starting to develop on the east side. And I saw a couple of investors. I saw tent poles. I saw properties under renovation. And I went right in. I shook their hands and said, "My name's Abhi. I'm a local investor. What are you guys doing here? You know, you're building, this is going to be a nice project, I'm sure. What do you think about the neighborhood? Where are the next deals at?" Having conversations like this only happen when you are driving for dollars and you are out pounding the pavement, going from door to door. You never know who you'll meet. The third type of person, the third way to find deals in a hot market is to go to a meetup or start your own meetup. Meetup.com is super easy to go to. It is free to join. It does cost a little bit of money to start your own meetup, however, but I highly recommend it. Anywhere that you go on Meetup.com, especially if you punch in the keywords real estate, investing, or real estate, join those meetups, go there, and engage people in good conversation. Let them know exactly who you are, what your mission is, what you're looking to accomplish, and they will point you in the right direction. And sure, will you make mistakes? Absolutely. But you know, life isn't worth living if we don't make mistakes once in a while. We can always get back up, and we can always keep doing better. So go to a meetup. Starting your own meetup, this is something that I started. I started my own meetup in Atlanta in October, and I cannot tell you how rewarding it is to see the meetup grow, to see the folks grow, to see other investors come to the meetup, offer their properties, talk about markets, and this is how we know what's going on locally. It is incredible how many people will come together to share that knowledge. For rent signs. I love for rent signs because, you know what? It may also be for sale. It may also be for sale. For rent means that a tenant recently moved out. And you know what? Maybe that owner is tired. Maybe that owner isn't even in the state, which I'm going to get to in a second. If that owner's in state or out of state, they're tired of handling the property. You know what? They may be interested in negotiating. For rent for me also means for sale. Probate leads. If we take a look at probate leads and we really dig deep into the heart of the matter when folks pass away, you know what we find? We don't find opportunity. We find an opportunity to heal people. We don't find an opportunity to make money necessarily. We find an opportunity to work with a family, and really heal them. And that's why I love probate leads. Sure, there's money to be made there. Sure, we can look at them as leads. But when you really start feeling the pain that they're going through and you help them through that process, it is so rewarding. And at the end of the day, the biggest thank you that they can give you is saying, "Hey, Abhi, you know what? You've been so awesome helping us through this process. You know what? We do need to sell our house. And Can you help us? Absolutely. Probate is essentially a process, it's a court process that folks go through when they pass away, and that the estate will go through when they pass away. Generally, you have a couple of people on the paperwork. You have heirs, you have attorneys, and you have petitioners. The two decision makers really are the petitioners, but everybody needs to agree on the specific paperwork. So 2 years ago, we were working a probate deal, and we had 16 heirs, okay, 16 heirs that had to sign paperwork. So we met all of them at a Bojangles in Atlanta. It was super fun at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we got everybody on the same page, and they all signed their paperwork, and it was a nice, smooth process. We were able to flip that house. That family moved on, and it was a winner for everybody. It was a win-win-win all across the board. Absentee owners also as well. These are the best type of people to go to because you know what? They don't even live in the same state. So they might have 2 or 3 properties that could be an absolute headache. Their tenants could be an absolute headache. The property disrepair. They might be getting tax bills. They might not even be paying their tax bill because the tax bill is going somewhere else. Who knows? But it's great because that's a really big pain point. If I live in Atlanta and I have property in California, how often am I really going to get out there? Not very often. So mailing out to these absentee owners, you can go to listsource.com and find absentee owners in different areas and different zip codes. Just make sure that before you buy a list that you do homework on the area in which you're targeting. That's really important. Otherwise, you know what? You're going to be competing with everybody else that's into that one specific super hot zip code. Wholesalers are awesome. Wholesalers are people that are finding deals that are boots on ground. If you don't want to drive for dollars, wholesalers will. Wholesalers are putting up bandit signs. They're going to networking meetings. They're driving for dollars. They're pounding the pavement every single day. And these are folks, these are men, these are women, these are kids, these are new real estate investors, old real estate veteran seasoned investors finding deals. And the good thing about wholesalers is there's more than one of them. You can go to Craigslist.com. You can go to local meetups and your local real estate investment associations and meet them and shake some hands and see what deals they have. Just make sure that you vet the deal. Real estate agents as well, build a good rapport with your real estate agents because, oh my gosh, if you have an opportunity to jump on an expired listing or what's called a pocket listing, like an off-market listing, to find that deal before anybody else does, in a market where inventory is low, need I say anything more? That is gold. That is gold. And we have a lot of real estate agents that we work with in Atlanta that will bring us deals given certain criteria. So remember this buy box I was talking about, the 3-bed, 2-bath buy box? Make sure that you give them very specific criteria because when they give you a deal, then you can execute because you know that you've coached them well. Okay? All right, next slide. Evaluating your deal, part 1. I'm going to rock and roll through some of this stuff, so if you have questions, certainly type it into the box on the right side. I'll be happy to answer them in just a few minutes. Now, part 1. There are a couple of rules that you need to know. Your total project cost should equal 65 to 75% of ARV. So what does this mean? You know, you're looking at this, and you're like, Abhi, you're crazy. Sometimes I understand some of these numbers, but some of these numbers I just don't. There's a percent sign. What's going on? Okay. The total project cost is the acquisition price plus your renovation cost. Okay? Total project cost is acquisition price plus renovation cost. That number should not exceed 65 to 75% of ARV, your after repair value. So let's do a quick mathematical example. My ARV for a neighborhood is $70,000. That means 75%, I'm sorry, my ARV is $100,000, excuse me. So 75% of my after repair value is 75% times $100,000, which is $75,000. If my cost of renovation is $20,000, it needs to fit into that $75,000 number. $75,000 is the most that I can be all into that property for, including my renovation, including my purchase price. Okay, so if my renovation is $25,000, subtract $25,000 from $75,000, and we get $50,000. That means my acquisition price for that property cannot be more than $50,000. Okay, why do I like this range? Because at the end of the day, I know I can sleep well at night because I have a buffer already built into my property. If I need to sell tomorrow, then I can. If I need to sell in a month, I can. If the market is starting to shift and it drops, say, by 5% and then drops another 3%, I can move my property really quickly. So that's why I've built in a good 25 to 30% buffer in there so that I know I can get rid of it at any point in time. Monthly rent should be greater than 1 to 2% of total project cost. Okay, so if my project cost is, say, $50,000, then 1% of $50,000 is $500. My monthly rent should be greater than $500 and less than, well, if it's greater than $500, that's okay. It depends on the type of financing, though. All right, so if you have financing, say, from an institutional fund or an institutional bank that's getting you 3.5%, which you can get, then great. Then you can meet that mark. If you can't, then you know what? You're going to have to increase your monthly rent until those numbers make sense. It's that simple. I think the 2% rule is a little difficult to come by, but I do think that right around 1.5%, your monthly rent being right around 1.5% of your total project cost, your total all-in cost, should suffice just fine. Another small little thing I wanted to add, your yearly taxes should be less than or equal to 1 month's rent. Here's why. If your yearly taxes are greater than that, it is eating into your profits and it's eating into your cash flow. It's that simple. Here in DeKalb County in Atlanta, man, let me tell you, taxes for a $75,000 house can be $1,900 a year. $1,900 a year. And I'm only able to get maybe $1,250, maybe $1,300 a month in rent. So I have to cover that tax liability somehow, and I need to make sure that it just fits that formula. So I will not purchase anything where my yearly taxes are greater than 1 month's rent. One month's rent. The expense ratio is super easy. For really nice looking property, that's an A grade. For B grade property, it's kind of like, I can live here, but I still have to do some renovations to it. And then your C grade property is, not really. I wouldn't want to move my family into this neighborhood at all. These are the expense ratios. So therefore, if you're looking at a really nice property, nice neighborhood, everybody's lawns are taken care of, you know what? 38% of rent should go toward maintenance. No big deal. And these are just quick little expense ratios that you can use to help you evaluate what your cash flow will be. This is the biggest challenge that a lot of folks have. They don't know how to evaluate that on the back end. And when they calculate their cash flow numbers, it ends up being, say, $50 a month instead of the $150 to $200 a month than it should be. Make sure that your expense ratio is right, and make sure that you're buying your property right. If you buy for more, if you buy for 80, 85, 90% of ARV, if your total project cost is 80, 85% of ARV, you know what's going to happen? You will be upside down eventually. I promise you that. You don't want to buy at such high numbers. Don't give in to any bidding wars. Don't do any of that. Okay? It's not worth it. I'm seeing that happen far too much in Atlanta right now. People go to the auctions on Super Tuesday at the courthouse steps and pay too much for property. It's no-go. No bueno. I'm not a big fan of it. Okay. Evaluating your deal, part 2. This is super easy, but essentially if you're out of state, I don't know. I've been getting so many emails about this. Please, 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 please make sure that you visit your property. Take pictures, take video. If you're in state, visit the property. Okay? You will not purchase a car without looking at it and without running a Carfax, right? Very similarly, you're not going to purchase a property without visiting the property, looking at it, and really, really getting into it. Now, if you are out of state, please, please make sure you visit it. At the very least, get really good video, really good pictures, and an inspector to get out there. What's the inspector looking for? Well, you're looking for roof condition, plumbing condition, the condition of the HVAC, the overall condition of the interior. You're looking at the neighborhood. Is a neighborhood friendly to families? Is the property close to good schools? Is the property close to good transportation? Is the property close to highways and major roads? And do a gut check. Would you live there with your family? If you wouldn't live there with your family, then you know what? Don't purchase it, and it will save you the headache. Last slide here, folks, and I certainly appreciate your time. The long-term acquisition scalability strategy for this model is very simple. Get good property management that understands you and that you can scale with. This is the background is a picture of Pennington that we finally finished, and it's a good-looking property, and we flipped it, and it did well for us. But you want good property management. And in this case, in the case of this flip, you want good project managers. You need a good handy person. You need a good handyman because he or she will tell you exactly what you need to do to get it right. And that is the best thing in the world. Property management is important because if you find the wrong property management, they will just continue to bill you for the wrong things. They'll focus on evictions because that's how they make the most money, and they don't take care of the property the way that you want it to be taken care of. Make sure that you get referrals for property management. Make sure they provide references that you can call on, and make sure that their pricing is in line with what the local market has. Okay? How do you choose? Get referrals and ask a bunch of people what their thoughts are about property management. Believe you me, bad news spreads quicker than good news, so pay attention to both types of news. Every property management company should be giving you a monthly report of what's going on. There's a lot of them will actually use technology. They will use software to give you these updates. Make sure that you understand the software and make sure they give you a demo of the software so that you can, once you get that yearly report, the quarterly report, the monthly report, you have no problem diving into the numbers and getting into the nitty-gritty. If there's something that needs to be adjusted, you can ask your property management firm. Here's your team. You have to have a good mentor. If you're new to the game, if you're new to the business, if you're new to rentals, regardless, find a mentor. This person is probably looking for you. This person probably needs some help. This person loves real estate. This person is full-time, and this person is seasoned. They're battle-tested. Get to know this person really well. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Buy him lunch, buy her lunch, buy them coffee, and be that squeaky wheel. Because you know what they say about squeaky wheels. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. And I've had many mentors in my life, and I continue to have mentors, and I will stalk them until they become my mentor. There's no substitute for good leadership, good mindset, and good knowledge. And if you don't have enough, find somebody that does. We just talked about property management. Find yourself a good local handyman or handy woman, and I briefly touched on this as well. For those small little things that you just need touched up, that you need to have done on your property, a local handyman will help just fine. A real estate attorney is crucial. Making sure that setting up your LLCs, your operating agreements, please make sure they have operating agreements for any entity that you create, and any eviction notices, anything to do with the property, having a good attorney on your team will really make things super easy. An accountant as well, specifically an accountant that has clients that invest in real estate. You need to make sure of that, otherwise there's so many nuances in real estate accounting that even, quite frankly, go over my head that I don't understand, will confuse folks, so make sure your accountant is also on the same page as you are. Real estate agents and wholesalers for finding your deals, crucial, we talked about that, and an escrow agent to facilitate deals quickly. You need somebody that will understand the game. And in Georgia, we use real estate attorneys to facilitate deals and to close deals. In other states, you'll use title companies, escrow agents. So make sure you get to know them really well, treat them right, and they will be your best friends, I promise. So that wraps up my presentation. I certainly appreciate it. Looks like the PowerPoint gave me a little bit of an issue, but I hope that it was very, very beneficial for everybody listening. I am a huge fan of question and answers, so feel free to start asking some questions. And if you have any questions for me offline, feel free to get in touch anytime as well. All right, Chris, I'm going to transfer control back to you in just a second here.
Thank you, sir. We got it.
Awesome.
So everyone, again, if you're looking for the question and answer panel, it's down there on the right-hand side. Go ahead and enter your questions there. We're gonna get to a couple here. So firstly, Abhi, we want to give you a chance to give yourself a plug here. So what's your website? How can people get a hold of you? And I'm going to put some information up here, but again, get your website up here, email address, and one of the specific questions we did have is, you did mention using Meetup. When are you actually using Meetup in Atlanta?
Awesome. So the best way, I'll address the first question. The best way to get in touch with me is to go to realestatedealtalk.com, and I'm very active on social media as well. So you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, pretty much anywhere and everywhere. I love answering questions, and I generally respond with a video. In terms of meetups, I have a meetup every month on a Saturday. If you just go to meetup.com, search for me, you'll find it. And it's once a month in the mornings on Saturday, generally between 8 and 9:30. Awesome.
And then another one for you here. What dial are you on your radio, and when is your show on?
Awesome. I am on 1190 AM, local to Atlanta. If you're not in Atlanta and you want to listen in, just go to biz1190.com, and you can listen live. I'm on every day, Monday through Friday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that is Eastern time. So every day, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays, I believe I'm on at 4 a.m. and again at 8 p.m.
Killer. Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to take a minute here just to kind of bring this back to the IRA side and how this works in an IRA. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so I'm going to fly through this. But again, if you do have questions, put them in that box. We'll get them back to you in an email version. So first of all, you did talk about borrowing and having leverage in your IRAs. If you are going to buy a piece of property with your IRA, there are obvious rules that you have to follow per the IRS. You can borrow. You can get a non-recourse loan in your IRA that would essentially be a line item in your IRA with a negative balance, offsetting the total cost of the property in the account. So that's just to get to the lending side. Flips obviously can be done in the IRA, but there is certain rules you have to follow again. One of those being you can't put your own sweat equity into these projects. So if you are thinking about using the IRA, you are thinking about going the flip direction, you just have to hire out those general contractors to do that work for you. The IRA will pay for the expenses of those contractors, and at that point, you'll be able to do the flip and do it that way. But you cannot do sweat equity by yourself in a property that is held in an IRA. All expenses and benefits flow through the IRA. So that monthly rent check is coming into your IRA, just like a dividend from a stock. And if you need a new water heater or you need to repair the roof, that check is being cut from your IRA as well. So something to keep in mind. PENSCO does require third-party property managers. So you did talk about the property management thing. It's something that we do require because we don't want people to get in over their heads or forget what's going on. You need to have that help as a property manager, so we would also stress that, just like you did. Finding that proper property manager is key. We do have a couple more questions here. What's the best way to find a probate deal?
All right, the best way to find a probate deal is to go down to your courthouse. And in Atlanta, you can go to Fulton County. You can go past the marriage license section, hang a right, then hang a quick left, and you'll come to this. You'll come to a bookshelf. I'm not sure if we all. I'm not sure if we remember what bookshelves look like anymore. But you'll come to these. You'll come to these bookshelves, and you'll just see. You'll say probate records, and it will give dates of. It'll give dates on the binders on the side of the binders. And you look them up, you pull a couple books, you open them up, and what you're looking for is the following. You're looking for petition for administration, you're looking for letters of administration as well. You're looking for solemn forms, anything that has to do with administrating the case through the probate court system. And when you're there, you can write down all the information, and that's where they'll have the petitioner name, they'll have the attorney name, and any heirs as well. So generally, the best place to go is your just write down to your county. I have seen other places where sources online where you can buy probate leads as well, but in my experience, they've been relatively unreliable. I like going straight to the horse's mouth on this one.
Great, thank you. And that, we do have some more questions about how this works in an IRA, so I just want to bring it back for a second here. There are several ways that you can do this. You can own a property outright, where the IRA buys the entire property and everything flows through the IRA. You can do that again, getting a non-recourse loan, where the whole property is owned by the IRA with some leverage in there, where you have the non-recourse loan in the account. You can buy a percentage of the property with the IRA. It doesn't have to be the entire thing. It could be 50% your IRA, 50% yourself. This time, the expenses are going to be split based on who owns what percentage. So half that rent would come into your IRA, half would go to you personally. You could form an LLC, as we talked about earlier. That LLC could be buying properties. So there are several different ways to do this. There are different ways that work better for different people. You kind of had your renovation strategy versus your turnkey projects versus your flips. Those are kind of some of the strategies you want to think about when using your IRA to do this. Obviously, as you said, this is a long-term goal. This can be a great cash maker. So you just want to think of the different ways that work best for you and in your situation. Sometimes we find that, especially if you're going to do the rental thing, the turnkey might make the most sense for the IRA just because there's less to do, less expenses that you have to flow through the qualified dollars. But again, there are several different ways to skin a cat on this. So we just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that there are several options out there. Now, we can get into specifics. If people have more questions, we'll be sure to email things later. We have a blog on our website. You can see the email address up here at takecontrol@pensco.com, where we can answer more specifics about that. But there are several ways to own property and to make property work for you in your IRA, and we just want to make sure that you guys have all your options out there. We did have another question regarding the, so hold on, I just saw something about an HOA up here, which I wanted to get to. Okay, so when you were going over your expense ratio, is that including your HOA fees in there typically, or is that an additional cost that we should be factoring into that expense ratio?
That includes everything.
Okay.
That includes everything. Yeah, generally I'm not looking at condos for rentals, for a long-term rental, unless I understand like Airbnb has become super popular. So that is another option. Airbnb will make enough cash flow on a monthly basis to justify having a condo or a townhome that's part of an HOA as a rental. But generally speaking, those HOA fees can be really, really high. In Midtown Atlanta, they're going for between $200 a month all the way to $400, $500, $600 a month. So that can really kill cash flow. Just really be careful of those numbers. But yes, those expense ratios are all inclusive of every expense line item.
Excellent, thank you. And this is actually a question from me. I heard you mention it earlier. What's a bandit sign?
A bandit sign. A bandit sign is the, have you ever seen those "We Buy Houses" signs on the corner of like major intersections?
Yes.
Yep, that's a bandit sign. That's a bandit sign. Yep.
Excellent. All right, well, again, want to be respectful of everyone's time. We will have the full presentation to be delivered via email. We'll get to any questions that we missed via email as well to the specific question asker. We want to thank you so much for joining us. We really liked having you. Great information. Please reach out to anyone up here on the contact page if you have any questions for the real estate side or the IRA side. We'll be happy to get back to you. And thanks so much for joining us again, and maybe we'll do this again soon. All right, Abhi, with that, thanks again, and thanks to everyone for joining us. See you later. Bye.